Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Danielle Fisher, and I'm the event manager here at Eco-Canada. And today's session is called Indigenous Environmental Leadership Program Overview, and this is powered by RRU, Royal Roads University. Before we start, I would like to take a moment to recognize the traditional Indigenous lands where Eco-Canada's office is based in Calgary. At Eco-Canada, we're committed to working towards respectful acknowledgement, collaboration, and reconciliation with Indigenous peoples across Canada. This starts with acknowledging our honor and privilege to live and work within the Treaty 7 territory. Today, we are presenting from the city of Calgary, home to the Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3. We would also like to take this time to acknowledge the traditional territories and oral practices of the Niitsitapi, home of the Blackfoot Confederacy, which includes the Siksika, the Piikani, and the Kainai First Nations, and the Tsuut'ina and Goodstoney, which include the Chiniki, Bearspaw, and Wesley First Nations. Before we start, there are a few housekeeping guidelines for today's session to ensure that everyone can enjoy and participate in our session effectively. All participants are muted, so please check your audio settings to ensure that you can hear us properly. If you experience any technical issues, please use the question box and select Eco-Canada, the organizer, and I will do all that I can to resolve your issues. Today's webinar is being recorded and will be made available on demand to you within the next 24 hours. Everyone who registered for the webinar will receive an email with a link to the video. Any questions you have about the presentation or today's topic can be submitted through the chat box or question box. We will have dedicated time after the presentation to answer questions that you may have. Finally, we really want to know what you think about our webinars and how we can keep improving. You'll be sent a short survey after the webinar ends. Please let us know what you think or if you have any comments or suggestions about the webinar. Eco-Canada's vision is to build the world's leading environmental workforce. Eco-Canada seeks to help environmental workers succeed at each step of their career journey. To do this, Eco-Canada has developed programs tailored to the individual stages of each person's career. For those looking to enter the environmental workforce, Eco-Canada provides training through the BEAR program and accreditation for environmental programs at post-secondary institutions. Eco-Canada also provides opportunities for new workers to break into the environmental sector through wage funding for co-op students and recent post-secondary graduates. For those already employed as environmental workers, Eco-Canada provides the environmental professionals and environmental professionals in training certifications and EPT students. Lastly, Eco-Canada provides opportunities for those with vast experience as environmental workers to provide guidance and direction to Eco-Canada's products and programs through advisory committees and emeritus memberships. I would like to introduce Dr. Leslie King. Professor King's life has been dedicated to environmental education and inspiring and empowering people to enter and excel in the environmental field, solving local to global environmental problems, including climate change and biodiversity loss. Her research and teaching interests are integrated environmental sciences and planning, Indigenous environmental perspectives, environmental justice, climate change and biodiversity, environmental governance, and knowledge systems, including local and traditional ecological knowledge. Next, I would like to introduce Dr. Michael Lickers. Dr. Lickers teaches in the Masters of Arts in Leadership and Masters of Arts in Interdisciplinary Studies MAIS programs. He is also a senior advisor with Suncor Energy, Indigenous Relations and Community Development. His role is mainly focused on Indigenous relations, youth engagement, and community investment. His focus is on Indigenous ways of knowing and being, Indigenous methodologies, Indigenous youth leadership, storytelling, youth leadership, international youth leadership development, land-based cultural education, and outdoor education. Next, I'm going to hand it over to Vance Boisjoli for his introduction and to begin the presentation. Over to you, Vance.
Great, thank you, Danielle. We appreciate everybody joining us this afternoon. My name is Vance, and I am the school manager here at the School of Environment and Sustainability at Royal Roads. that is within the school that has many different programs on environment and sustainability that are at a certificate level, bachelor's level, and master's level. And the Indigenous Environmental Leadership Pathways program is part of our school. Now, before we get started, I would like to make a land acknowledgement for where we are here at Royal Roads University. So it's very important for us to recognize that Royal Roads University is located on the traditional lands of the Lekwungen-speaking peoples, the Songhees and Esquimalt First Nations. And this means that we recognize the importance of Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples' relationships as we continue to learn and understand the history, present, and future scopes of Indigenous people. And it's with gratitude that we learn and work here, where the past and present, the future of Indigenous and non-Indigenous students, faculty come together. A beautiful campus here. So on that note, we're going to start talking about our certificate program, and I would like you to put in the chat your name and what lands, traditional lands that you're on, and maybe tell us a little bit about why you're interested in this program today. While you're putting that in the chat, I will continue on to tell you about our agenda. So we already spoke a little bit about our partnership with Eco-Canada. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Royal Roads University experience. Dr. King and Dr. Lickers will talk about the program specifically, and then we'll talk about the application process. So to start, here are a couple images of Royal Roads University, a beautiful campus. You can see that in the top left-hand corner, that's the Hatley Castle, a heritage site in British Columbia. We also have vast forests and grounds here. And interestingly, we have a lot of animals that live with us. Just last week, we had cougars and bears on campus. The Esquimalt Lagoon is in the bottom left-hand corner, and a very important place for birds and fish. And Royal Roads is an online university, but you're always welcome to come and visit us here, of course. So why Royal Roads University? We answer this question a lot from different students of all sorts of backgrounds. So we see life as a qualification, and what we mean here is that we do things a little bit differently when it comes to admissions. We really want to see where you are from and what your background is. So that means we don't just look at your academic achievements, but we actually also look at your life experience as well. We have small class sizes here, so our instructors will know your names, and they want to actually develop a relationship with you and get to know you and work with you as you develop in your own career. Learning is based on life, which means that we integrate as much as possible. You're learning on things that are happening in the world and not just on academics. We also want to make connections for life. So we hope that through your connections with your professors and also with the students you're working with, that you develop strong bonds. And then finally, we do things a little bit differently. That means that we are an online university, and that's kind of how we've started. In 1995, Royal Roads became one of the few online universities in the country and has continued with that until now. So you can see that a lot of our students are very happy with their experiences here, and we are very happy to keep in touch with them and learn a little bit more about their lives beyond Royal Roads. In the 90th percentiles in most categories of how Royal Roads has prepared them for the future. And also, last but not least, Royal Roads is a change maker university as identified by the Ashoka U organization, which means that Royal Roads is known for its inspirational leadership and also focusing on innovation. And we are a change maker campus, which shows that we have a proven track record of campus-wide excellence for social innovation and change making. So we're very proud of that designation, and there's not a lot of universities in the world that have that. So we take pride in that. Without further ado, I'd like to now leave it to Dr. King and Dr. Lickers to tell us more about the Certificate in Indigenous Environment Leadership Pathways.
Thank you very much, Vance. Thank you, Danielle. I'm first going to say a few words about myself, and then I'm going to ask Mike to say a few words about himself. So we are better known as Mike and Leslie rather than Dr. Lickers and Dr. King, but we understand where that comes from. So the Certificate in Indigenous Environmental Leadership pathways. And I want to stress pathways because that wasn't in the title. But this program is a pathway to an undergraduate degree, and then, if you wish, to a graduate degree. The degrees are in the Bachelor in Environmental Practice and the Master's in Environmental Practice. This program has been a very long time coming. I've tried to introduce a program like this in many places, most particularly where I worked in the north of BC, where I was adopted by the Nishka and Tsimshian, and my adopted name is Huksuksukshlupoon, or ever-wandering whale. I have another name that means teacher of the people, but I really like the whale name, so I tend to use that a bit more, even though it's a less traditional name. Okay, before I talk more about the program, I'd like Mike to please introduce yourself.
Thanks, Leslie. Okay, my friends, greetings. I would say, sayego, great peace to each of you today as you come and join with us. This is an opportunity. I'm a Gayingahaga citizen from the Six Nations of the Grand River, and I'm currently in Calgary, where the head office of Eco Canada is. So the land acknowledgement was already recognized, but I'm here on the traditional territory of the Blackfoot Confederacy, the Siksika, Kainai, and Piikani people, as well as the additional signatories to Treaty 7, which was just signed 140 some odd years ago the other day. And it is the Tsuut'ina Nation and the Stoney Nakoda peoples, the Bearspaw, Chiniki, and Goodstoney nations. And it's also home to Métis Nation Region 3. So I'm super excited to be here. And the opportunity, I carry many different traditional names, but I'm going to encourage you to get on the course so that you can hear what those are. I'm not going to tell you much of them here now. What I can tell you is that I've been adopted traditionally into a family on the West Coast in Fort Rupert. I have an extended, huge, large family west of Calgary in Morley with Nakota family, and also friends and dear relatives and family in Rankin Inlet. So I try as best as I can to maintain my relationship with all of those communities. And I am grateful to be here today and honored to be co-presenting with Leslie, as we spoke about earlier. So I'll turn it back to you, Leslie. That's my introduction. And then we'll talk a little bit more about the core stuff.
Thank you so much, Mike. Among other things, you're a real C person. I like that. Rankin Inlet. Good. Okay, so this program is really the culmination of my work for many, many years to introduce environmental programs in many different universities. I've started new faculties, new programs, new majors, you name it. But I am really excited about this program. Some of the photographs you saw of individual people before this slide are students who were in last year's cohort. And we loved those students. They were fantastic. And they all learned so much from each other, and we learned from them, and we all had a wonderful time. So this program prepares Indigenous learners to identify and address environmental issues within their nations and communities. So we saw a real gap in training for people who are already working in the environmental field in their nations and communities, and also people who wanted to get into the environmental field. And so this program is really an introduction to enable people to move into that field and to take leadership roles in their communities and nations. Here we have tribal journeys, and I've paddled, I'm not supposed to say paddled, I've pulled in many of those tribal journeys, and they've been a wonderful educational experience. Sorry, Vance, who is it for? Okay. The program's meant to create a forum for both experienced and newly emerging Indigenous environmental leaders, in other words, you, to learn together and support one another. Indigenous environmental leadership builds on your existing knowledge of Indigenous environmental stewardship. Now, Mike is one of the instructors in this program, And I was so happy to be able to hire all Indigenous instructors for the program, and will continue to do that. The other two instructors are Dr. Megan Hamilton, who is also from Treaty 6, and I think they're taking over the world. And also Candace Wilson, who is Heisla from Northern BC. But Mike will talk about his course in a minute. Vance. Okay, now this program is 100% online. And, you know that it's sometimes better to learn in person with the other learners and to interact in person. But we try our best to make this program, even though it's online, very interactive and personal. And the students learn a great deal from one another and interact with one another. So the reason we made it 100% online is because people are from everywhere. I couldn't believe the fact that all the students in this program last year were from all over the nation we call now Canada. And so it was wonderful to really hear all those different stories and different perspectives. As I said before, the instructors are all Indigenous, not me, of course, but and I participate in the fourth course, but all the other instructors are Indigenous. I hope that you'll find the admission process fairly easy. And we have Angela Howlett on board on this webinar, and she'll help you with any questions you have about the admissions process. And last, you've heard about Eco-Canada. I really value the Eco-Canada partnership because it really keeps our feet on the ground. You know, we're academics, but some of us are scholar practitioners like Mike and Megan and Candace, who work in the real world as well as in academia. But the Eco-Canada partnership really helps us to identify the needs of the environmental sector and prepare our students for that. Sorry, this is one of my dogs. They love to join in on these webinars. Okay, so the program really consists of 4 credit-bearing courses. Beg your pardon, I have COVID, so I'm sounding a bit ragged. It actually starts with 2 non-credit courses, the Introduction to Academic Integrity, which is taken by students all over the university, everyone has to take it, and an orientation to the program. Then the first course is Introduction to Indigenous Environmental Leadership. And Mike, take it away. It's your course.
Okay, great, thanks. And I'm going to do one thing. I'm going to back up a bit, Leslie, because I know if this is being recorded, my dear friend Megan will say we are not from Treaty 6. We are from 6 Nations of the Grand River.
I'm sorry. Yes, you're right.
Correction there. And
yeah.
Everybody on the call, I would say, this is certainly an amazing opportunity to learn about the diverse aspects of this country and Turtle Island. This amazing opportunity that we have from unique different nations, the complexity of challenges that are faced by each individual nation. And I think those are the beautiful opportunities that we have. We've been able to sit in a sacred space as faculty, as staff, as students, and we have this conversation about changing things that happen in the world. That's going to require leadership. And leadership is not just a word. This is an action that is going to unfold in your communities to give your communities the benefit of change in the future. So as leaders, this time is going to be a great gift to you in subtle ways. You're going to live and bear witness to qualities and competencies and passions needed to change the world. Or the opposite of that, the values, the principles and perspectives that you don't want to see happening in your communities. So we're here to encourage you. This course here, the start of it, is to encourage you to live and apply the learning and expertise so that you contribute your leadership potential to changing today's ever-evolving world challenges. Now, That seems like a really interesting perspective and sometimes a bit challenging for students, A, that have seldom been online before, that have very often, this is the first program that you're attending to. Don't be afraid, my friends. This is a place where we're going to help guide you. We're going to help get you across the stage. We're going to help make sure and do everything that we possibly can to support you and to lift you up to achieve your dreams. That's what leadership is about. And so this IELP 200 is basically an introduction to the course. We'll talk about leadership. We'll hear from two amazing people practicing leadership in the communities already, and you'll have a chance to go through this, being supported by me as a faculty or as an instructor. But I learn just as much from this course and from the students, as Leslie said. I learn as much from those students as as I can actually potentially share. So I'm super excited. If you're there and you're interested in this program, this is the start of it. This is where we begin off and we launch off into our program. So I'm super excited as an instructor. It was one of my highlights last year, was to be able to listen and learn and walk through the leadership potential and opportunities for all of the students that were in the course. So thank you, and thanks for sharing. It's super exciting. I'm looking forward to this year coming up. Leslie, back to you.
Thank you very much, Michael. And one of the things I wanted to say earlier is that all of the instructors in this program work very hard to ensure your success and the success of anyone in the program. And so we often get people with conflicting priorities or with emergencies that happen in their communities. And you all know that that happens regularly. Well, the instructors are there to help you through that and to make sure you succeed in this program. Thank you very much, Mike. That was great. Okay, the next course, which is taught by Dr. Megan Hamilton, is Challenges for Environmental Leadership. So this course really goes through some of the major environmental issues faced by Indigenous nations and communities today. So it basically explores and investigates all the factors that contribute to the environmental impacts that are felt by your communities, including environmental, social, and health impacts. So all of these courses are very interdisciplinary, and they also take advantage of your knowledge and your experience. These are some, there's Elder Joe Martin down there. And we try to use as many real environmental leaders, Indigenous environmental leaders, as we can in the program, as Mike said. Okay, Vance, could you advance, please? Sorry, bad pun. The next course is taught by Candace Wilson, and it's Strategies and Tools for Indigenous Environment. And Candace really knows this subject well. She's been working with the Haisla Nation and all of the nations in the North who get together to address climate change and issues such as the pipeline and various other environmental issues. So this is a very nitty-gritty course. It really talks about the kinds of measures, tools, opportunities for Indigenous environmental leaders. And so it really is focused on solutions to the problems that Megan talked about in the earlier course. And I like this line: many of the solutions discussed in the course come from Indigenous values-based frameworks of resilience, relationships, respect, reciprocity, resistance, reconciliation, and restoration. If you know any other R words for us, we'd be happy to have them. Thank you very much. Vince. Oh, I see. I love where you're all from. Sinemu, Lilwat, Anishinaabe. That's great. And Mike, sorry about Treaty 6. I always refer to it as 6, so it's really hard for me just to say 6. Thank you. And thank you for the correction. Okay, the final course is the experiential course of the program. And this is where the students really have fun, because they organize a practicum either in their community, in the organization that they're already working for, or in a different organization that maybe they want to work for, or whatever meets their fancy. They work with a supervisor in that organization, both to learn from the organization and how they're addressing environmental issues, but also to contribute to that organization. And the students had wonderful practica last year. And I can certainly help you and talk to you about some of the practica that they did. But here's one example. And this is a recycling program that Dakota did in the Silvertip mine in Yukon. And Dakota works for that mine. And he was working with a bunch of crusty old miners, but he actually succeeded through incredible tenacity in creating a recycling program for the mine. I won't go into a lot of detail about that because we don't have time. And another of the students did a similar project in Manitoba, doing a recycling program for his community. Okay, Vance. Yeah, so this was incredibly successful against all odds, and we loved that program. Other students did many other different wonderful things. One of the students, who's an artist, illustrated a book for Indigenous resources on traditional foods. It was wonderful, and that book will be published. Vance.
Okay, so
Okay, back to you, Vance.
yes, the next part is we're going to talk a little bit about applications, so how to apply for this program. Now, one of the interesting things about Royal Roads is we have a standard admission and we have flexible admission, because we realize that different people are at different points in their lives. So we want to make sure that if someone is very interested in this program, we want to give them opportunities to apply for it. So our standard admission, basically what we're going to ask for is that you have completed or graduated from secondary school or senior high school, that you identify as Indigenous from the lands we now call Canada. We will accept a small number of students who do not identify as Indigenous people. However, we would need to know that they work for an Indigenous nation, community, or organization. Obviously, we want to make sure that we have Indigenous students in this program, so that is our goal. For flexible admission, so this would be for students who aren't able to meet, say, that high school requirement, you can still apply. What we would ask for is that we just want a little bit more information to know why you're interested in the program and some experience that you've had. So for example, if you've worked for at least 2 years in environmental experience, whether that's paid or volunteer, that would count. Or if applicable, Eco-Canada has the BEAR program, which is a great opportunity to prepare you for this program. So those are the kind of things that we would look for if you haven't completed your high school education. So what that means is we take our applications online. So you go to the RRU website or the Royal Roads University website. If you are applying for standards admission, we'll ask you to upload your official transcripts, your high school transcripts, and also we ask for a personal statement. We want to know about you and we want to know why you're interested in this program. If you're applying for flexible admission, which means that you haven't completed your high school, you can submit any transcripts that you do have. Also that same personal statement that we want to hear why you're applying. And then in this case, we would ask for a letter of reference and then your resume to show us a little bit about the experience that you've had. When you apply online, it's step by step. So you'll be able to follow the process, and there is an application fee as part of the process, and it will explain that as you apply.
Can I interrupt just for a second?
Absolutely.
The admissions advisors at Royal Roads are wonderful, and they will help you with all of these things. And so if you're having trouble finding any of them, just ask for help from the admissions advisors. They're wonderful people.
Absolutely. And I'll give some more information about that in just a minute.
Great. Thanks.
The other thing I wanted to mention, and there are some key dates. So our next Indigenous Environmental Leadership Pathways intake is January 8th, 2024, but we're asking you to apply by October 8th, which is coming up. So we're hoping that we'll get applications before that deadline. If you're not able to make that deadline, you can still reach out to us and we can see if we can still process your application. But ideally, we'd like to have our applications in by October 8th. Now, as Leslie was mentioning, we do have a lot of people that work at Royal Roads to help with the enrollment process, because we know that for some people, this may be a brand new experience. So there is a phone number there, both a BC number and a toll-free number in North America, or by email, you can also contact us at learn.more@royalroads.ca. And of course, we'll be sharing this webcast with everyone that signed up for it. So if you need to review it, feel free to watch the webcast again and look up that information. Or if you just go to the royalroads.ca website, you'll see right when you log in, there's information about the programs, and there's even a chat on the web page where you can reach out and ask for some support with your application. I also want to mention that many students take advantage of different financial resources available. Often there are scholarships that are available, particularly for Indigenous students. We recommend that you do reach out to your band as well to see if there is funding for any sort of educational programs. And of course, the Royal Roads website lists some financial aid awards as well that you are welcome to apply for. But of course, it's important to read the information about each award to make sure it's specific for what you're looking for. And on that note, we can turn it over for questions. I'm putting this slide right here. Thank you for joining us, but we're not ending up yet. I just want to make sure that you also know that you can contact Leslie King at any time. Leslie is the program head and she's happy to answer any questions. I'm speaking for her, but she will say that as well. And I'm going to hand it over to Leslie and Mike for any questions that have come up, and Danielle as well.
Okay, great. Danielle, do we have questions?
We sure do, Leslie. Wonderful presentation. That was so informative. So great job, guys. That was really good. Okay, so let me just get up here. Okay, so our first question is from Lucinda. Lucinda is on the traditional territory of Lil'wat Nation within BC. She works within the recycling field for all of the First Nations within BC, and she's participating today to see if this course would be relevant to her job. I think it is.
I think I chose the right practicum example for you. Yes, in a word, it would be very relevant to your job. I'd love to talk to you more about that. And of course, you know, recycling is a key mandate for all the nations and all the communities, and it's so important. So I appreciate the work that you do, and I appreciate the fact that you would bring that experience to the classroom and to your fellow learners. So if you want to reach out to me at that email address, I'd love to talk to you further.
Wonderful. We have a question from Naya, and Naya's wondering, how long does the personal statement need to be?
Good question. You know, there's no, you're probably asking the wrong person. I'm the most flexible person on earth when it comes to word limits. So, you know, I think you just want to get across why you want to be in this program and what you bring to it. And whether that's one paragraph or 3 pages, I'm happy as long as you get that across. And, you know, it'd be good to include any environmental or leadership experiences that you've had in your community or nation, and how that will contribute to the learning of the other students. And also what you want to do in the future, what you can build on this program for. I hope that helps. Probably not very much. Most of them are about a page.
Great. Okay, so we have a question from Kelly Winter, and she's privileged to be on the lands. And I've dropped this nation in the chat for our panelists. I cannot pronounce this. Can someone teach me how to pronounce that?
Nemu?
Yes, Shinemu.
Yeah,
Okay,
Nemu.
First Nation located in Mudge Island in BC. Thank you, Leslie. And she's hoping to discover how her company can support this educational pathway. She's the Director of Health, Safety and Environment, which undertakes training initiatives to support her employees and future potential employees. So I think that there's probably some way you can support there, Leslie, I'm assuming?
So I can think of many, my brain's exploding. And I'll also ask Michael, but obviously, helping your employees to take this program, coming in and helping to teach the program, coming in and doing a guest lecture or taking it yourself. It sounds to me as if you've probably got quite a lot of post-secondary education, but it would be great. Many people took this program who already had degrees. And that's because they had no opportunity to take an Indigenous-focused program. And so they came back to make sure that they could take advantage of that opportunity. I'm going to ask Mike to respond to that question too. Thanks, Mike.
I would also add to that. I would say if you're in a position to support students, to engage them to do work with your company, that's another cool opportunity.
Yeah.
So think about those. Cape Mud's beautiful location, fantastic, and it's an opportunity to maybe mentor some of the students as well and contribute to their success. I would say that that's probably a good start for sure.
Perfect. I hope that
Great.
helped answer your question.
Fantastic. Okay, so I have another question here. What are some other examples of practicum experiences students have had?
That's a very good question. And if I didn't have COVID, I'd be able to answer it more fully. I'm trying rapidly as we speak to remember all the practica. So they ranged from, water testing, a study of beavers in the location, in the nation, a plan.
Protection of an endangered turtle species.
Yeah.
Wow.
There was I think I would hope that soon we would be able to highlight some of these, and I can't remember. I thought we did look at sort of presenting highlights of the students' programs and successes. But
Yeah,
as Leslie said right at the very beginning, a book is actually being written about some of these ways of food protection, food sovereignty. There was so many rich projects, and they varied uniquely across the country. Place names and things like that they were looking at trying to incorporate. Projects were just unbelievable. Sorry, I can't mention all of them because I can't remember them all either, but the ones that I stayed connected.
Remember the Mi'kmaq one? That was fantastic.
Yeah.
So sorry, we're burbling on here, but I can certainly help you with those. We had those students come to campus, whoever could come to campus, for a little mini graduation ceremony. And when I introduced those students, I talked about all their practica because that was such a fascinating part of the program. And they were so successful in their practica placements. They were wonderful. And I had the organizations write to me and say, thank you for giving the student the opportunity to help us in our organization. So many different ones, from the very scientific to the very spiritual, you name it.
Wow, very interesting. Okay, we have a question from Andrea. What are some of the people who completed the pilot program doing now?
That is just such a great question. And both of these questions we are going to have to write stuff about, because many of those students were already working in the environmental field in their nations, but are now poised to take a leadership role. So they'd be the head of their environmental program. And others, there were urban Indigenous people in the program too. So they weren't necessarily connected with their nation or their community, but they were doing work in urban areas related to the environment and with urban Indigenous people. So there's such a range of both jobs and work that they are doing. Now, some of them are working for governments. They're working for their nation's government, but they're also working for local governments and provincial governments. They're working with protected areas. They're working on land back. They're working on guardian issues in their nations. It's such a huge range, and obviously I'm struggling here because I probably should have made note of some of these before I came on this, but I'm certainly willing to discuss them with you. And I would like to publish a list of both practica and where those people are working now. I mean, we have counselors from their from chief and councils. We have people working for traditional government. So there's just a huge range.
Wow, very interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so we kind of have not a technical question, but an educational question. After completing the program, will any of the courses be transferable for a bachelor's degree?
Yes, that's the whole purpose of this program. It's
Okay.
meant to move people along. At the moment, there are 4 courses, but right now I'm working on adding 6 courses to the program, so it will be a full certificate program. The Bachelor of Environmental Practice requires 60 academic credits, undergraduate academic credits for admission. And so this program at the moment provides 12 and will eventually provide 30. And then for people who graduate from that, we will recommend courses throughout Canada, in First Nations colleges, in regular colleges, in universities, online courses that they can take to make up those 60 credits. They can then go into the Bachelor in Environmental Practice. And in some cases, they don't need those extra credits because many of them already have some post-secondary education. And they can get into BEP through flexible admission. So there's a whole variety of pathways to get that first degree. And then we also have a master's degree in environmental practice. So there's lots and lots of opportunities here for leading. That's why it's called a pathways program, because it's meant to be a pathway to a degree.
Okay, interesting. Okay, so we have a question here from Elise. Elise is asking, how many students are chosen for the program and how many non-Indigenous can be part of the program?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Last year, we did not take any non-Indigenous students. I've had people begging to get into the program who are not Indigenous. And so that's why we say if they're working for or with an Indigenous community, we will consider them. And that's really important because we've all got to work together. So I think that's something that I've been pondering. In terms of, sorry, what was the other question? Boy, I do have COVID. My
Just the,
brain.
How many
the total
students are
number.
chosen?
Oh, yeah. We could only take 20 for the
Wow.
initial program. And so we capped it at 20. We actually took 24 because that's something else that I'm a little flexible on. But we were supposed to only take 20 and we had an age limit. But now we don't have a cap and we don't have an age limit. And we can take non-Indigenous students. So it's much more open now for January.
Seems a lot more accessible. That's
Yeah,
wonderful.
much more accessible. That's right.
Okay, so I have a question from Aisha. Now, Aisha is from the nation I just dropped in the chat. If someone could help me out with that.
Not Sunemu.
Okay.
Oh, got me, Mike.
No?
Okay, this is an educational opportunity, but she can't do audio, can she? Or he?
No, she can't.
Oh,
No, unfortunately she can't, but I would love for that, someone to help us out with that if anyone knows. But she works with a number of nations there. So, and she's wondering how long does it take to complete the course? Is it full-time or part-time? Can it be
okay.
completed alongside existing employment? And then she has a follow-up question.
Yes to all of those except the full-time, part-time. It is so far with only 4 courses. The courses lead one to another. So they last for 10 weeks and then the next one starts. So it starts with 200, then 220, then 240, then 260. 260 is longer to take into account the practicum placement. So all of these students were doing something else, whether they were doing other educational programs or working. And that is a tenet of all my courses. We like to be flexible and to accommodate people's priorities and needs. So yes, they all were doing something else. I think that's true, isn't it, Mike? I can't imagine anyone who wasn't doing something else.
And I'm just going to, you know, as a really cool Mohawk person, I did research on this name already.
Good.
Unfortunately, I
Well, well
cannot
done.
pronounce it, but it is, I can't pronounce it, but it is a stewardship alliance of approximately 17 First Nations combined.
Wow.
And
Okay,
they
wonderful.
range from Shiem to yeah, like Seabird Island. If you know that area in that region, Skaha,
Yeah.
Sumas, Yale.
Oh,
So
great.
it's actually a stewardship alliance of 17
That's
signatory First
that's
Nations.
fantastic. I would love to hear more about this.
Yeah.
Email me.
Absolutely. And she said, yes, so I work in the Lower Fraser with multiple nations. So
Yeah.
I can send over Aisha's name to you after this, and then you guys can hook up there too as well.
I'm wondering if I haven't had some interaction with Aisha. Maybe not,
Aisha, yeah,
but I would love to in any case.
absolutely.
Hopefully we will.
Yeah, we
Absolutely.
will.
And then her follow-up question was, how large was the cohort last year?
The cohort last year was 24 students. The reason I'm iffy on that one was we took some students who didn't conform to the age limit. So we had 24 students, but we only had 20 who were under 30, which was a requirement of the funders for the pilot program. This year, I have no idea. You know, already I'm being pushed to add different cohorts, but I won't do that until we figure out how many people apply and how many people are interested in the program. So at the moment, I just don't know how many will be in the January cohort. It'll be as big a surprise to me as it will be to you.
Yeah. Last year I started off the cohort with 25, so it
Yeah,
varies.
yeah,
Okay.
it does vary.
Leslie and Mike, I think that one part of the question was, how long is the program?
Oh, it's 1 year.
Yes.
I beg your pardon.
Yes.
Yes, I'm
Sorry.
sorry. I forgot that. So it started in September and it ended in August,
Okay,
And so that
perfect.
this will start in January and end.
January, and it will end before Christmas.
Okay. And we have a last question here, and that is, how much time per week will this program require of me?
Angie, are you on the call? This is such a hard question, and
Well,
I get it. all the time.
I'm going to do my best to answer this in a way that I answer it for other courses as well. And the answer is, it depends. And you'll hear that quite often. And partly it actually does depend. It depends on how quick you read,
Yeah.
how quick you post, how, you know, like there's so much variables, so many variables in the time that's required. I would say on average 12 to 15, you know, hours a week. And again, it depends on you as a individual, how passionate, how excited, how the time. We all have life and life happens, and that's what we were talking about at the beginning, is that we do our best to encourage and support. At the same time, there's expectations of doing certain things. So it'll vary and it all depends. That's my answer, and I'm sticking to it.
No, that's a great answer, Mike. In fact, I always say between 10 and 20, but people find that a little too vague. But the rule of thumb at Royal Roads is 3 hours for every credit. So if you're in a 3-credit course, then you need to devote at least 10 hours a week to that course. But this can be a very demanding program, and students do get very excited about it and want to share their own stories. So I know that some of them spent more time than that. So that was a good answer, Mike. Thank you. Oh, yeah. Angie is even more vague than I am. 10 to 45 per week.
It's a big range, but it sounds like they can do as much or as little as they want, as long as they are finishing everything that they need for that
Yeah,
week. So
there's an old adage about that. You get out of it what you put into it.
Exactly. And we just got a comment from Kelly saying that she would love to touch base and maybe take the course. So I will send Kelly's name over to you right as soon as we end this. I'm just going to see if there's any other questions, and it doesn't look like we have any other questions.
Thank you.
Danielle, I got a message about the October 8th deadline for applying.
Okay, perfect.
And just to clarify, if you apply by October 8th, you can get in your you can still have time to submit your documents after that. But we would like you to express interest by October 8th, because that will help us determine who will be in the program.
And by the way, those deadlines are often extended by the central administration, so by 30 days. So probably that will be extended as well. But I recommend that you get your at least the online application in, and then you can spend time to get the letters and your statement and things like that afterwards. By the way, this is rolling admission. So we admit people as they apply. We don't wait for all the applications and then take the best. We admit people as they apply, as long as they're qualified for the program and we think they're interested.
Wonderful. Well, it sounds like an amazing program. I think that anyone would be bereft not to take advantage of this. So thank you all so very much. As I said earlier, this recording will be made available to you within 24 hours, and you can watch it at your own leisure. Please reach out to me if you would like to get in contact with any of our panelists that you've seen today. And everyone have a great weekend and a great day. Thank you guys so much for this wonderful presentation.
Yeah.
Have a
Thanks
wonderful
so
day.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Bye.